Okay. Well, look. Yeah, it's really weird to be in Russia. I haven't left Hong Kong for almost 2 years, and that's kind of weird. So I'm going to get used to kind of socializing again and talking to human beings. I live on a small island that you can only get to by boat or helicopter in the middle of nowhere. And for the last 2 years, that's what I've been doing until these Aluminium Foundation kindly invited me to do this, which is wonderful. And it's quite fortuitous, really, in the sense that I've been working in aluminium for 30 years. That's how old I am now. I mean, I left college 30 years ago, and the first material I ever used was aluminium. So now I'm going to sit here and talk about it, or stand here and talk about it, and try and make some sort of sense, if that's okay. The only reason I'm wearing these glasses is because I had an eye operation, and I've got to be a bit careful. I burnt my retinas because I started my life welding. So I was always TIG welding, and that's it. And I have actually got hair under here, believe it or not. But I thought when I was in London, I was passing through town, and I looked at the temperature here, so I bought this hat. So basically, I've got a studio in Hong Kong, and I've been there for 15 years, developing design in China. It's a very strange moment in time because just as I was about to open my office in China, COVID happened, and I have not been able to get over the border. So all my staff are stuck all over the world, but we still managed to. A lot of my staff have been with me for nearly 20 years. So yeah, this is what I do for a living. It's very odd. So basically, I've been working in aluminium, and I think it's really nice of you guys to invite me over, because I don't think anyone's really worked in aluminium as much as I have. Frankly speaking, it could sound a bit arrogant, really, but they haven't. I did one of the biggest exhibitions in Europe in a museum called the Grand Hornu about 5 years ago, which was it was a very didactic exhibition based on all the processes of aluminium. And I guess, are you guys all into aluminium? Really? Okay. That's aluminium. Yeah, so this is a little bit sort of, I'm just going to be myself, okay? So this is going to be really organic, and I'm just going to explain my work. I'm sure Katerina's probably really worried about what's going to come out of his mouth. But, more fool me. So I've been designing for 30 years. I left college. How long have I got to talk for? 1 hour. Right. Okay. Okay. Hours. Okay. Yeah, 30 minutes. Okay, jolly good. Yeah, so basically I left college 30 years ago. I failed every single exam at school 5 times. And basically the only thing I could do was draw. And I was completely unemployable. So I started working for a guy called Tom Dixon 32 years ago, and he taught me, I had an interview at his office, and he basically said, "What can you do?" And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Can you type?" And I said, "With one finger, I can do that for you." Anyway, it turns out, so he gave me a job 30 years ago. And the next day I was moving steel for him from one side of London to the other. So since then, I basically have just been traveling around the planet. I had a studio in London, and then I went to Brussels, then I lived in Iceland, had an office there, then I lived in Australia, and then Taiwan, and now I live in Hong Kong. So I basically just like this sort of cruising around and working for companies. I effectively, I guess I'm a sort of consultant, really. I like to think I'm a consultant, or good enough for someone to consult towards. So I might just go straight into talk. If I got 30 minutes to talk about aluminium, yeah. So I'm going to look at a little exhibition I did here. Oh, this is a car I did recently. That's a really old car, actually. That's the Moke. One of the reasons I put that in there is, let's have a little look here. Work. It's a good starting point. Let's see where this goes. Additions, spatial design. This is quite old. Let's click. So I'm just going to talk to you about aluminium. The reason I got into aluminium is actually that I was doing an exhibition at Business of Design Week in Hong Kong, and a guy came up to me and said, "I've got a factory in China. What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean by that?" And I put his business card in my top pocket, and he said, "Well, you can do anything you want." So basically, I started working in aluminium and using his factory to train his staff. Really? Yeah. So look. Okay. So this is really. There you go. Let's just start here. Industrial design, furniture and lighting, additions, spatial design. There you go. Let's have a look in here. What do we find? Additions. I could have sworn this exhibition was in here. Gallery all. So look. Let's start off here. Oh, no, I can do this one. No, this one. I've done so much of this stuff. This is my grave, which I built 12 years ago. And it's actually in Melbourne at the moment, at a friend's house in their garden. Marble grave. I actually did this. Okay, there you go. So I just click on that, do I? And nothing happens. What? Well, that's not opening. Oh, really? Okay. Okay, there you go. So let's just start off here with death. So this is my grave, and it's in a friend's garden in marble. It's in Melbourne at the moment. And I made it, and I actually did a show in Hong Kong, and this is the original Mac font, okay? And it says your name here, and I did it as a concept and showed it. And anyway, I thought that was a good starting point. And I didn't realize I'd opened all those windows because, let's go here. Oh, you're not going to forgive me for this, are you? What? Don't keep clicking. My PDF is in the hotel. I'm doing my best, okay? Editions. No. It's okay. I mean, I think you can have as many windows open as you want, right? Editions. I'm going to show you something that I did in aluminium. Okay. This is why women are really useful. They come in useful for all sorts of things. Okay, you can be you're in control of the mouse, okay? All right. Okay. So I just want to show you something. This is, where do we start? I mean, there's so much stuff here. This is probably the most complex thing I've ever done in aluminium. Oh, come on. Use that. You can do it, right? Okay, so this is one solid piece of aluminium. This is about, I actually had this aluminium manufactured in Australia, and imported to China, and then CNC'd, and then polished by hand, each little square, and I don't know whether you know anything about aluminium production in terms of CNC, but to actually do this is really probably the most complex thing I've ever done in my life. So each one of these little squares is hand polished after it's CNC'd, and this started a whole process of investigation, which was offered to me by a company in China who just wanted me to train their staff and explore what we could do. And then I made this thing for them. Now, this was actually a solid block, and they asked me to see how we could CNC inside the actual metal itself. So when you go actually inside here, that's probably the first object in the world in aluminium that actually has internal there you go. So inside here, that pattern goes all the way through down to the floor. So it started off as a solid block, and then we took it down to about 2 millimeters and CNC'd it all the way and recycled the rest. So I guess ultimately this is kind of evidence of what I do in aluminium, and I used to show all of this stuff in Miami and places like that. Sorry. I wanted to, okay. Yeah, okay. So this is the craziest stuff I've done in aluminium. Sorry, this is really embarrassing to be standing here and have someone do that. I'm really sorry about that. This is the craziest stuff I've ever done in aluminium. So what I did, I went on a flight from Hong Kong to Mongolia, and I found a factory that made me a steel metal casting, and then basically injected this with metal, and obviously you heat it up to 500 degrees Celsius. Stop laughing. Making me nervous. So basically, I only made 2 of these because it weighed about half a ton. And then, so what I had to do was, this was like a little muffin. I don't know whether anyone's been to Starbucks before, but effectively it started life as an object like this. So basically what I had to do was cast, this was the tool. Now, you've got to bear in mind, okay, this was in the outer depths of China. There was no flights, so I spent 7 hours in a taxi, and then basically persuaded them to manufacture this tool here, and then inject the aluminium foam and put pellets in it and explode it. And ultimately, so that's the factory. They never wanted me to show that photograph, but I asked them if I could put it on the website. Sorry? Right, okay. Here we go. See you later. Sorry? Well, okay, so basically they make an explosion inside the aluminium, and then it creates all the aeration. So it's quite a standard. Yes, but basically the aluminium, you have to turn off the explosion at a certain time to stop it from actually breaking. But since this is not working, I can't really go back there. Oh dear. I'm really sorry about this. I did have a PDF this morning, but there you go. Not working? Yeah, so basically what we did then, now I used to have a video, so this is what we actually got from the aluminium, which was like a little muffin, and then I had to send it 700 miles to another part of China where we CNC'd the seed out of it. That's a really hard part, and then anodized it. which means that we actually literally make a crane to lift it. And then I showed it it's now in the Museum of, Museum of Modern Art. So I guess that's the least commercial sort of product that I do in aluminium. But what I've actually done is set several companies up. And you probably don't believe me because I probably don't look like I've set several companies up, but I have. So what I actually have done lately is, let's look at furniture and lighting. Furniture and lighting. Here we go. So this is, I've just spent my life doing aluminium. So this one, go down a bit. Okay, let's go to this one. Should we do this one here? So this is the most complex thing beyond that I've ever done, which is swaging. Oh no, that's the wrong one. Yeah, this little chair here is something I designed about 12 years ago, or 8 years ago. And if you know anything about aluminium, to actually do this and swage, so that's an extrusion, and then that's swaged into that shape and then kept together by the bottom piece, and then again the same at the top. And this has become a bit of a classic piece of furniture. So I set a company up to manufacture these. Oh, it's going. So basically, yeah, I mean, I guess I've been doing this stuff. This is a perforated aluminium front for a company in Italy called Brianviga. It's one of the oldest companies that were manufacturing speakers in Venice, which is a beautiful company. So I've ended up with all of these weird opportunities that have just arrived from aluminium. So this is, let's go to, yeah. So I consulted for Giant Bicycles working in aluminium for 3 years and helped them with a new factory in Shanghai. I might go back. Industrial design. Let's just stay here. Yeah, this is all aluminium. And I guess if you're here, you like aluminium. So, you know, I have done literally endless work in aluminium. This is there you go. This has been a very successful product, which was probably one of my highest selling ever designs. And okay, here we go. Yeah, so this is a company I set up which only manufactures things in aluminium. It's called EOQ, and actually I asked the guy who financed it to design the logo with his wife, because that creates a lot less problems. And actually the logo was designed based on extrusion. So this was actually the first product we designed for them. And that was, I don't know, I mean, for someone to actually, we didn't even make a prototype of the chair. We went straight to tooling, manufactured this, and that was the result. And that's why I guess I've existed in China, because of, I guess, the courageous attitude of some of the supply chain that I've got there. Sorry? And then I designed this product here, which was, again, another extrusion. There you go. Which became really the foundations to for the company that I set up. So we designed about 10 or 11 products, and this was originally called EOQ, but I've just taken it over and I've rebranded it under a new name. And you can only buy this stuff in China. So it's a very industrially linked company. And the idea of that brand was to try and connect everyone around the world. So if you buy a can of my beer in China, there's a little scanning code, and you get connected to some other people who are designers, and you can chat to them. So it's like beer Tinder, ultimately. I've never done that before. But all of these, and this is the beer glass. There you go. Everything's named after music. It's all in recycled aluminium. So there's a connection between everything I'm showing you, which sort of makes sense in a way. And this is the beer glass I designed for the brand, which is my brain. And that's actually, algorithmed. Okay, let's get this going. Yeah, from my friends in Los Angeles, and called Amora, which is actually not aluminium, believe it or not. But yeah, I shouldn't talk about that, should I? Okay. Let's go back. It's not aluminium, but this whole stuff is all extruded aluminium. So I've been trying to that I work with in China, and I guess hopefully there's a sense of process that if you're involved in aluminium, you can understand. But effectively, what I've done with all of this is help set up a lot of companies around the world. And despite the fact this does look a little bit chaotic, that's the result of all of this hard work. And we have a studio in Hong Kong with about 7 people, and all of these projects have effectively become ambassadors for some very large brands. This is probably one of the, apart from Bang & Olufsen, or one of the world's most high quality speaker companies, KEF. This is a bass amp we just designed for them. There you go. Let's go for giant. So this was a huge project. You said half an hour, right, of me rattling on. So this became normal. I was the art. You can see that's 2007. I was creative director for Giant's design division for 3 years, and basically try to teach them to move from sports over to what they called lifestyle at the time. So all of these things we designed. This is a hydroforming, and it's actually a patent, but it's become quite normal, it seems, that everyone now puts an integrated headlight in their bikes. But all of these things I actually had patents for at the time. Let's go up here. There you go. It's me. This one's more exciting. I prefer this one. So this is all hydroforming, and the headlight was particularly one of the favorite details. But I was really fortunate that I basically had the whole design team around me just to effectively support me. So when it comes to working with a company like that, I would have the handlebar designer, the fork designer, the saddle designer, and we would literally sit in a room, and we spent a day designing this bicycle, and it still sort of sits up there. And then I launched it with my friends in Japan, and drove sushi to people, as you do. What I realized from this was a lot about humanity, because when you start off as a young designer, you think that everything's about yourself. And then when you meet people like this, you realize that everything you do is for people, and that your decisions you make in that factory, actually their jobs are all depending on. And that was probably the most important thing that ever happened to me in design, when I realized the humility that exists within it, and that mass production is about people and economy and scale, and how you actually support that whole cycle. So I probably haven't explained that very well, but when I actually was there, I suddenly realized that these little ladies were packing boxes, people were delivering trucks, and it was a big shift for me, because if you become a famous designer in London when you're really young, you kind of get a little bit, you think it's all about yourself. And then that slowly disappears with time as you grow more humility. And I think this project really taught me about humility, and honesty, being myself, trying to avoid it. Here you go. Oh. Oh dear. Hi, Belgium. Cheers. Oh, you know, it's just sort of endless. I can rabbit on.
Maybe like every page you have on your website, it's open right now.
It's okay now. Okay. Yeah. So you can see the diversity that we do, but yeah. This was interesting. One of the this is probably one of the I'll just talk about two more projects, because I mean, you know, I'm probably just rattling on here. Oh my gosh, it's just not working. Okay, there you go. Let's talk about this project. This one was fun. This is one of my most successful other projects, which was a company called Kiki Montparnasse, and it was a sex toy that I designed years ago. And what actually happened was that my friends who've got a company in Belgium were art directing this company in New York, and they knew I'd just moved to China, and they said, "Can you design us a sex toy?" And so I did it. I found the manufacturer, and then halfway through the project, the art director of the company got sacked, and I got left with 10,000 sex toys and a lot of accountability. So I had to set up a distribution company to get rid of them. And as a result of that, this little chap here was made. He's coming back onto the market, but I don't know. And as a result of that, I ended up setting a distribution company up. Anyway, I think I'm just going to stop, because I'm just rattling on.
Can we do maybe a short Q&A session, if you don't mind?
Yeah, and I'm really sorry if that didn't make too much sense, but I rushed out of the hotel this morning, and you know, I can explain why in more detail if you ask in the Q&A session. Yes.
I have questions for you.
Okay. Only if I can show a picture here.
Yes.
Okay.
What is your most favorite project out of your projects?
I don't have one. After this, I stop working. I'm retiring. Yeah. At the minute, I'm actually just writing a book about all of these projects, because they've all involved so many different people, and so they affected so many different lives, that we're now writing a book about 30 years worth of history of all of this stuff. But if I have one favorite project, I guess I could say it's probably this one. It's a watch called PXR5. Can I send you an email and you can put it up there or not?
Yes, sorry, I forgot that I need to use a micro to ask questions. But my question was for Michael, and I asked him what is his favorite project out of his project. So yeah, for those who didn't listen, I'm
going
sorry.
to go to it. It's probably this one. So I designed this about 17 years ago. Oh, there you go. Look, it's a really simple design, but that's probably my favorite thing because it's completely analog. There's no nonsense. All you've got to do, and I designed this in Belgium. I went to Taiwan. I met a guy on the Star Ferry in Hong Kong, and he recognized me from a magazine, and he said, "Do you want to do something for my factory?" So I designed it a day later in Belgium, sent it to him, and then ended up it being one of the most successful things that I designed. So yes, that's it.
About the chair with that amazing texture. Can you tell more about this muffin stuff? Is it solid or it's kind of...
The muffin stuff. Okay. Additions, yeah, additions. It's probably one of the most complex things I've tried to do. Probably the one I've made the least money out of, and it was more just an experiment. So effectively, I made the tool, injected the aluminium, and then you can get these little pellets, and when they reach a certain temperature, they explode. And that's how you make aluminium foam. And effectively, literally, I think that's about half a ton. Then you have to get it on a CNC machine, and then you have to find someone who will anodize it. So if you try and anodize something like that, it means that you destroy the entire tank. So you can only anodize one time, one color. So it costs probably around $30,000 just to make one of these things. So I made a few of them, but I've just given them to museums and what have you. But it's a beautiful thing. This is it in, I think, what museum's that? That's at MoMA. And that's I used to have a gallery in Brussels, and that's the last time I ever did an exhibition there. And, you know, what's funny about that is that a lady from Canada came to me and said, "I like muffins," which is kind of like, oh, you know, you kind of, you know, Starbucks, right? Yeah, so I don't know, what do you want to know about it? So it's really hard. You can't control the way the material flows because it's literally an explosion. But it's probably one of the most favorite projects I've ever done, really, to be honest with you, because it was just so out there and no one ever sort of explored that territory before. Yeah. But that's what it starts out looking like. And I've got a few of those. If anyone wants one in the garden, I don't know what to do with. Yes, thank you.
Hello, Майкл. Вопроса два. Как вы думаете, заменит ли искусственный интеллект человеческий дизайн? И второй вопрос. Вы работаете руками или в цифровой среде?
So the first question was, what do you think, will artificial intellect kind of replace human design? And another question is, do you think do you make your project with your hands, or you use some kind of technologies or some kind of programs? Yeah.
Look, I basically started life by making things by hand. So the first thing I did was learn to weld. So I know how to make things. And that's I think Monty Python actually put it correctly. They said it can be thin at the ends and fat in the middle, or the other way around. So I learned about shapes very early on. So yes, I can make things with my hands, and it's really important to me that synology with materials, because it's been my education. So I failed maths 5 times, English 5 times, you name it. So I had to learn to make a living through materials, and that's been a really sort of constant in my work. Now, you're the second person who has asked me this question today about artificial intelligence, and I actually prefer humility and human interaction than artificial intelligence. I appreciate that Tesla are doing their best in sort of, that powering that engine with automobility. But in terms of actually synology, I was talking about it with a journalist today. The most important thing I'm about to do is do an exhibition in Istanbul about ceramics, and you can't do that with artificial intelligence, because it takes history to make this sort of decoration, and I'm not really interested in the future. I've never had. I'm interested in what I do, and what, that's about it, so it doesn't, it's a really good question though. You have to excuse me. This is the first
Hey,
talk.
Michael.
I've been locked at home with 3 kids for 2 years, all right?
Yeah.
I wanted to show you a picture of my kids, but I can't email them. Yes. You said, what's my favorite design? And I was going to show you Freddie, my little 1.5-year-old, but I can't. Yeah.
Michael, I have a question. When you start with the design, do you have something that you do first, like when you form the concept, or what is it that is your method somehow of making design? Do you have some kind of routine that you're
To be honest with you, I decided a long time ago that I'm not an artist,
right,
and that I'm an industrial designer. So I basically work for clients, period. So whilst a lot of this looks really abstract, I have accountability financially. I have responsibility every time I design something. And ultimately, that's what sort of configures the brief that I get given. So whether it's a plastic chair, a metal chair, it's always about my love of the client, my relationship with them, and my responsibility to create economy. Their process within their factory is something I tend to be able to learn about fairly quickly. But, if you look at this new stuff I just did, which I just launched in Milan last week, for a company in Paris. Can we go back? It's not very good, is it? So this stuff I'm just going to show you was basically, the reason I designed it was because that factory is close to Venice, and they manufactured a chair for Vittoria back in the 70s, and they asked me to design a wire chair, and that is really about servicing the company ultimately. Maybe work in furniture. Press go. Yeah. So for example, this chair, wired chair, is something that they asked me to try and reinvent. Their oh, it's not even there. Okay. Okay. Yeah, let's keep it on that page. No, that's about the car. Yeah, so for example, that is really based on a manufacturing process and the history and the knowledge of that factory. Simple as that. Whereas this product is really about aluminium extrusion. It's taken me literally, I'd say, to make that table about 14 years to actually find a way of joining the material together. So it's really informed by my brief.
Mm-hmm. And what is your take on technology in terms of Do you apply digital fabrication in your design, or it's more craftsman? Craft phase?
No, I'm really honored that I've got really very talented staff. And without them, I probably wouldn't exist, because, my oldest, one of my oldest employees, 19 years now, he literally writes all the software himself. So everything we do, we pretty much create ourselves and then supply it to the factory. So we've been doing that constantly. So we're not just using SolidWorks and then saying, hey, here you go. We're actually developing the software to create the objects. But, saying that, this is probably one of the simplest things I've ever designed. And I love it because it was for beautiful people. And that looks like a really boring chair compared to some of the technology. But, it's really about the client. And these guys are doing super deluxe furniture around the world, the best of Italian technology and craft. So yeah, it's really about them.
Thank you.